So I'm told that this reading is about career and career prospects for someone. You have the chariot on the bottom, so I feel like this is going to kind of be about the next step to expedite the direction and achievement within this realm. But they're telling me to start at the beginning. So we might be orienting this as sort of a past, present, future reading. So tell me about this collective's past. What they might need to know and how that connects to the future. The Empress, the Hierophant, the Four of Swords. So I feel like in the past you had something that like required some level of like creativity, skill. Like you might have been someone who was working and utilizing those skills like within a specific institution with like the Hierophant and the Empress. But with the Four of Swords there, it's like there was almost something that was missing or something that was like not being fully activated within that space, or like you might have felt like you needed to take a step back from like that, institution or like that way of utilizing those gifts and that creativity. And the thing that's coming through with this past is that it's like you weren't wrong, about the skills that you were developing or the path that you were on. It's something like you weren't wrong, there was just more. There was just more. It was almost like that was a time period for you to develop a certain type of skill to like nurture some part of you that was very much aligned with your path, but maybe not in the way that you think. So what about like the present? Ten of Pentacles, Ten of Wands. All right, we got some 10-10 energy, some completion. Um, Three of Pentacles. So this feels like you are starting to share your energy, your skills, your ideas with the right people. But there's still almost this like divide, where I think that a lot of things are coming full circle for you because we have two tens here. But like Ten of Pentacles feels like very abundant. It feels like there's sustainability, like there's like a legacy to be built within that. Whereas Ten of Wands feels like heavier. That feels almost like a karmic cycle or something that needed to be moved, like needed to be cleared. And so I think that like where you're at right now is almost this sense of like learning to differentiate between those. And I think that you already know. But there's almost like this sense of you I'm like kind of like seeing like certain things like, if you've ever like seen a visualization or, picture of like what it looks like when you put a like the correct key in a lock and, like the little pins and tumblers and things inside, like they all line up and it like, flips it around. But if you put the wrong key in there, all of the like, teeth on the key, they don't line up with like the pins in there. And it's sort of just like pushing against it, pushing against it. And there's something here about like you figuring out like which connections, which opportunities are keys that unlock what you're looking for and which aren't. Because I really like in the imagery of these cards with this Ten of Pentacles here, there's like this big tree surrounded by people with like all of these roses, these flowers, and it's representative of this legacy, this thing that's been grown, that doesn't just involve one person. It's like a shared prosperity, shared legacy. And, in this Three of Pentacles here, that's all about the collaboration, teamwork, we kind of see this braid of like flowers that almost feels like something that's like growing from this into this. But like if you look at this Ten of Wands, there's all of these cows and things, but there's almost like this desert environment, like there's no flowers here. And so I think that there's almost like this feeling of I think these flowers being like representative of something, related to related to these gifts that you have, related to these skills that you have, because in this Four of Swords over here, we see like flower petals. And this is sort of representative of either like what was missing from your previous career or, like what you sort of put that on hold to pursue, with that sort of being representative of something that grows within you, something that is meaningful to you, something that is sustainable to you. And I think that there's something about like that being your overall dream and like finding the people who share that dream. Like I'm hearing in this metaphor like finding people who are also gardeners. Because it's not necessarily wrong if someone's not a gardener, maybe they're an accountant or maybe they're, a even a different kind of whatever, maybe they're a builder. But there's something here about like whatever this is that you are wanting to do, this sort of bigger legacy that you're building towards in the present. It's like it's going to be helpful to find those gardeners, to find those people who also nurture and sustain and provide you with the kind of support that you need. So now I kind of want to like dig into this like future energy. There's that chariot again. This was on the bottom of the deck when we started. Um, Chariot, the Hermit, and the Eight of Pentacles. So this feels like something where you're going to be like working with other people, but not like directly, not like you are, sitting next to them in a cubicle all day, going back and forth, whatever. This feels more like coming together for like collaboration and inspiration, and then like taking that back within yourself and like building on that. With this Eight of Pentacles here, which again, we're seeing those flowers. It's kind of like coming together to decide what kind of flowers you want to grow, or to, in this metaphor, talk about, growing flowers or the techniques that you have, and then, taking, I'm hearing like the parts of your internal space that still feel a little bit barren, and planting flowers there. And I think that there's something about like you doing this for yourself. You doing this not by yourself, because it's like there will be collaboration, there will be inspiration, and that is like a lot of the momentum forward, I think, is like this, return to others and then return to self. And this like balance between the two, I think, in collaborating with people who are not necessarily asking you to abandon any part of yourself, but instead are helping you to, create and cultivate the skills that you need in order to fill even, the most tired or the most isolated corners of your mind with life. It's this feeling of when you plant those flowers there that you've cultivated and, you know, been inspired and assisted in growing by all of these people, even when you are in that space of, sort of being within yourself or being by yourself, that there's something about, you not being alone there. There's something about this being something that connects all of the parts of you back around to your creativity, your gifts, your skills, and also like your collaborators, Four of Cups, Temperance, Two of Cups. This feels almost like a little bit of an aside, that there is something here about connection, potentially like romantic connection, that you've maybe held at an arm's length, or, felt as like kind of inaccessible. Because I think it's interesting in this Four of Cups here, we see there's like one woman who's kind of like looking a little bit disillusioned, a little bit tired, just sitting up here, not really accepting the full cup or like waiting for the final cup. And then we see like these two faces here. These two faces that look like they are, about to get a kiss or something. Like connecting here, creating this like shape of the cup. And then we have like the Two of Cups, so sort of like a similar imagery of these like two people with their faces very close together. And I think that there is this sense of a lot of things being closer than you realize. Um, and a lot of the emotions that maybe felt like they were inaccessible or maybe even just like exhausting, I think coming back around in a way that is balanced. And it's actually more balanced than you realize right now. Like there is this sense of it's just bigger than you can see. It's bigger than you can see, but I think that like when it all starts to make sense and when like the full picture kind of finally renders, there's something about like that feeling less overwhelming and more fluid and more balanced and more harmonious to all the parts of you, to all the parts of you. So as far as this like career goes, I kind of want to know, 'cause this feels again like it impacts a lot of different areas of your life. We have this little aside that sort of feels about like it's about like emotions, potentially romance. We're talking about like collaborators, friends, like sense of self. So I want to know, is there anything that is, currently holding you back or anything that needs to be addressed, cleared, clarified? There's a lot of Pentacle cards coming out here. We got the Two of Pentacles. Um, Two of Pentacles, Knight of Swords, Ace of Wands, Two of Wands. I'm hearing one step at a time. I'm hearing one step at a time. And it's funny, as I'm saying this, I'm kind of like feeling the energy flow, from up here, like all the way down through my feet. I'm hearing one step at a time. This is something that I think is supposed to impact all of you, which is why I'm like feeling this like flow, this like rush all the way through. Um, but it's going to be one step at a time. It's not going to happen overnight. And I think that, maybe in the past there was some pressure for you to be or do all of it all at once, because we've been talking about like growing flowers is like a metaphor for your, you know, whatever it is that you're doing as far as building this career, creating a product, creating art, whatever it is. But like the first card that we had out here was the Empress, and it's like she's creating worlds, she's creating planets. The things that you did like before, in whatever realm or scope that was, it's like you were doing that according to someone else's dictates, like someone else's desires. And I think like that might have been what eventually burned you out was the fact that, you were trying to cater to someone else's world, someone else's standard. It's like as I'm saying that I'm feeling like this soreness like in my hips, like I've been like walking for a long time, but I haven't been. I've actually been recovering from being sick. I've been having a very lazy couple of days, but I'm feeling this like soreness in my hips, like I've been walking, um, or like hiking up a mountain, and I think it was kind of like you were hiking everyone else's mountain. You were creating, using those gifts according to them, and there's almost this part of you that may be, I don't want to say like fully like worn out from what it is that you do, because I don't think that's the case. But I think that there's a part of you that like remembers what it's like to be that worn out. And almost like a part of you that kind of is protective of you, and is like, we're not going to go back to doing that. Even if you enjoyed this process of creation, it's much better to be doing that like on your own terms, in your own way. And I think that it may be a little bit more difficult, especially when, like over here, it's like you're working with some sort of established structure with the Hierophant, like established structure. And I think like that, even though there was like an exhausting element to it, it's like that gave you resources and structure to work with. And now it's kind of like you are building that for yourself and you are looking forward to the future with that like Two of Wands and like seeing the ways that this is going to like shift and change things. And you're seeing the way that like this inspiration that you're feeling really, because in this this deck, like the Ace of Wands is literally the Ace of Inspiration. Like you're seeing the way that like that can build in a positive way. But it's like with this ten of Wands, 10 of Inspiration here, you also know how that can become a burden. And so like there's almost this strategic element to looking forward. And I'm hearing Spirit say that it's like that's a good thing. You want to cover all of your bases. You want to be considering all of these avenues. You want to be balancing out, the excitement and the things that you're passionate about with the things that are true, with the things that you know to be true, with the things that, maybe need to be changed, shifted or adjusted. But there's also like something to be said for sometimes just letting yourself do what you want to do, you know? Because we kind of have these like Knight of Swords and Ace of Wands like sandwiched in between these twos over here. And like Two of Wands, Two of Pentacles, those are great cards as far as, when they come out. I don't have like any particularly negative connotations with them. But they are a lot of, like planning, balancing, prioritizing, some of those like practical skills. And I think sometimes that might also make that, Knight of Swords and that inspiration that that knight is carrying, feel a little bit held back, a little bit stifled. And so it's like almost the advice that they're giving me is they're like showing me like images of like a very excited dog, and like taking that dog out to like the yard or the park and like letting it run around, letting it do like the little zoomies every now and again. And it's almost like that might be helpful for this part of you is like, occasionally finding that time or that place where you can kind of just go a little wild with your inspiration, with your excitement, with your projects. Like let it be big, let it be beautiful, let it be exciting. And yeah, sure, come back down to earth and consider the practical constraints afterwards. But, don't tell yourself that you have to limit your sense of creativity to something that is always reasonable, because creativity is often about asking us to think big. It's about, asking us to be inspired and to dream and to get excited. And you don't want to get so excited that you take on more than you really want to. But I don't think that that's the issue here. I think that you do have a very strong sense of like what needs to happen and the practical parameters for that. So, maybe consider giving yourself a little bit of time to kind of go wild with it sometimes too. Let it come out the way that it comes out, and don't force it to always exist within the most of practical of parameters. It's like you can almost it's almost like easier to like trim something down once you have it if it comes out and there's like, too much or, not quite the right shape than it is to, try and force yourself to do it perfectly every time. Anything else? What about sort of the long-term outcome of this current career trajectory? What can you tell me about that? I'd kind of like to know. Seven of Cups. It's interesting. This feels like it's going to be something that takes you to a lot of different places emotionally, especially. And I think that there's something here about like confronting the root of any like scarcity mindset or like insecurity that you have and like understanding how to confront that, understanding how to release that, um, and almost like coming out the other side with a perspective that is emotionally rich, emotionally abundant. Um, I feel like there may be a period of, I think, like, I'm hearing like choosing to stick it out. Choosing to stick it out with this Seven of Cups, Five of Pentacles, that's like immediately followed by the Nine and Eight of Cups. It's like choosing to stick it out through a difficult time and then being glad that you did as you disconnect from that difficult time. Um, and I think that there's also something down here about you getting some kind of material support or, opportunity, um, that I think is going to be related to something very difficult that happened that felt like a closed door. Because with this Three of Voices we have in the middle, there's like literally like this closed door, and someone who's having a tough time behind it. And this Page of Pentacles here, it's like something that you wanted, that it felt like it was put behind a closed door. Um, that you felt like that's not a door I can open on my own. We then have the Ace of Pentacles coming out on the other side. This feels like almost like the word that's coming to mind is restorative justice. Like there was this opportunity that felt like it was shut out to you that isn't anymore. There was this sense of like that coming back together, and I think this feels like something that, I was talking about like this sort of like impacting every area of your internal world. And I think like this is part of it, is it's like intended to bring this healing to like these parts of you that, maybe still felt like I'm just meant to struggle, or, this feeling of these doors will always be shut to me. And it's like, taking you through the journey of transmuting that emotion into something that is real, into something that is an opportunity, into something that actually brings you joy, into something where you don't feel like you have to choose between your positive emotions and, your material success. Because like at the end of like both of these sort of like little mini journeys here, we have joy, we have love, and we also have material opportunity. And I think this is intended to teach you about both. Teach you about both. Anything else? Interesting. Queen of Pentacles reversed, Four of Pentacles. I feel like this might not make everyone happy. This is just like a little caveat that there may be someone with that Queen of Pentacles reversed, that could be like a maternal figure, um, who has not necessarily been like always acting in the most supportive way. Yeah, Five of Swords. This may be someone who, and Six of Pentacles, someone who like straight up screwed you out of like support that you should have had. This could be like a literal mother figure, or someone who, took on that role, who like had the capacity to be a source of support and chose not to be, sort of chose to support their own ego instead. And I think that like seeing you in your support here may be something that is honestly like destabilizing for this person. With that Four of Pentacles reverse, this is something that may be upsetting, and it may be worth, sort of working within yourself, keeping some of this to yourself until it is at the point of sustainability. Not because I think that this is necessarily going to fully derail that. I don't think that, this person has that power, especially with the Queen of Pentacles in reverse. It's kind of like this person, doesn't even have as much like material security as maybe they used to or as they could have had. It's almost like squandered resources type of thing. And so like there's this sense of this person may see eventually, and I think that they may realize that they made a bad investment. They made a selfish investment in treating you the way that they did. But you don't have to go out of your way to show it to them. And I feel like I would even advise, not lying, but maybe not, including this person in your closest circle of confidants, if you know who I'm talking about here. Someone who had the opportunity to support you and chose to support their ego instead. Someone who, has maybe like a feminine or maternal energy, but kind of turned that on its head in a way that was very selfish, very much like wanting everything from you and giving you nothing in return type of energy. But if you do at some point realize that this person is somewhat destabilized by that, you don't have to feel guilty about that. You're not doing anything wrong. This is just someone confronting the consequences of their actions, potentially even actions that they took a long time ago that it's not on you to resolve. It's not on you to resolve at all. Six of Wands here, which is I think where we're gonna end it. It's like what is on you is to own your success, is to own your victory, is to, step into the light of, what you've created and, what you were doing with that and where you want to go with that. And allow yourself to be seen, and you don't have to take responsibility for anyone else's actions or reactions to your success or you being seen. So hopefully that helps, and best of luck with this.